Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Incubator Podcast. We are live at the CHNC 2024. Daphna, how are you?
I'm great. I love that we have our first guest. We haven't even started the day, conference-wise, really, but we're recording. So happy to have some guests in the mobile studio.
And we're joined by Christine Stoops and Kara Short. Christine, Kara, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
You are going to talk to us today a little bit about some of the workshops that are going to happen, specifically when it comes to the renal focus groups. Can you tell us a little bit about what to expect this year?
Yeah, so we actually did a pre-symposium workshop yesterday, and the goal of it was called Bridging the Gap. And really the idea was we have so much growth of kidney support therapy in the NICU, but when I was a fellow, and I don't know if this is the same for you guys, I got like a 2-hour lecture rundown, and that was it. And that's just not acceptable anymore. And so the goal of this was to really focus kidney support, renal support, whatever you want to call it, give that education, that baseline education to not just neonatologists, but neonatal nurse practitioners and NICU staff to kind of get them to the point where we had this common language. So when the nephrologist comes in, we kind of know what you're talking about. We know what to anticipate. Maybe we don't have this here, but we know someplace that has have it somewhere else, and that's what we need to do. So the goal is to kind of bridge that common language communication. And then what we did in the workshop, which I think worked out really great.
Oh, yeah.
We had these rotating sessions in the morning and the afternoon where we talked about each of the modalities and more in depth with pediatric nephrologists. In the afternoon, we did common clinical case scenarios with a pediatric nephrologist and a neonatologist that you would see, and how to approach that and incorporate that. And so it was really interactive. It was different ways of presenting. And the goal was just to have a lot of communication back and forth. I think it really well.
I think it was nice because we started the day with didactics, which can just get so boring, right? I mean, we're not used to sitting in a conference room all day long. Yeah. We are busy. We're seeing patients, and so
we used to be able to do that.
Not anymore.
I know, right? Like I can't do it. And so in the afternoon, it was easy to break up into groups to apply that knowledge that we talked about that morning. And so I think that was helpful, not only to break it up, but then to have common case scenarios where you can take what you learned and try to figure out what you would do in the real world.
Yeah, I wanted to underscore, this was not a 1-hour workshop. This was an 8:30 to 5 p.m. workshop, which I think if you're going to take on something like renal replacement therapy, I mean, this is not something you do over a course of 1 hour. You guys had this intro talking about, like you said, the common language, since it is such a multidisciplinary sport, right? Renal replacement therapy. The foundations, where you talked even about nutrition and pharmaceutical considerations. I think that's huge because that's such a challenge in managing those patients. And then I want to talk a little bit about the cases that you talked about. Why did you pick these cases? Teach us a little bit why these cases were so critical to highlight.
Well, we couldn't cover everything.
Sure.
So, no.
In the beginning, we just had a smaller planning committee within the kidney focus group and said, what is most common? What do you feel like you're having to teach more and more with your fellows? What do you think would be the most high yield? And based on, we wanted to keep our groups kind of smaller, like 6 to 8.
Yeah.
We felt like groups of 4 worked out, so we had to come up with the top 4. There was a couple, like sepsis hypertension was kind of volleying with some other ones, but we felt like this was the one that consensus-wise we talked about much. And for instance, hyperammonia, like you don't see it very often, but golly,
you got to know what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, and you got to move fast.
And we had one just last week, and I was like, boom, right there. But like, it's one of those things, like, you want to make sure that you meet all the needs, but you can't meet everybody's. But the great thing is we had over 22 centers represented and attendees. So you got to make these connections and communications to have these further conversations last night. We fit in a lot of breaks in between to make sure that people could finish those conversations and talk about other things that came up, like, yeah, but this happened here. What did I do in this situation?
Yeah. And I think you covered the big topics: HIE, fluid overload, sepsis and hypotension, pulmonary hypoplasia and renal agenesis, and then the hyperammonemia case. So, yeah, when we think about what do you need RRT for, you guys really, spanned the gamut there. I think you guys did an incredible job.
Well, and I think like the renal agenesis piece is so big because 10 years ago these babies did not survive, and now we've got all of this stuff that we can do. I mean, since 2020 we have had a new machine that's neonatal specific. We've had several new vascular access catheters coming out, and so we've got to share that with people.
For sure.
Because they come and they say, well, we got this machine, but we don't know how to use it, and we don't have any access. And I'm like, well, here, look at this, right? So it's so important to be able to share what we do with people that the unit we do it in, right? So essentially I'm just a consult service. So if I can get buy-in from the people that are the primary team, it's so much easier to take care of these kids, and they're hard to take care of at baseline. So the more we can talk about this and everyone get on the same page, it's going to be better for those patients.
I feel like when you round, it's almost like some places you just are parallel rounding and then you contradict each other. So really the wrap up and the bridging the gap is how do we have these combined plans so that we're not fighting against each other, we're working against each other, we see each other's personalities and ways to approach things from our specialties. And like I said to Carrie yesterday, I was like in the workshop, I was like, when was the time you could ever think of that you had 40 neonatologists talk about dialysis only for an entire day? Right?
But it was great.
It was great. Yeah, we loved it.
Highlight of my career.
I love too what you did highlight was one, the changing landscape, right? About who we're offering RRT for, and that's changed just since we came out of fellowship. I think that's a huge opportunity, and then the innovation, the technology that's changing, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think the survivorship at our home institution has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And how do we get that out to these are possibilities. These are things that we can do now that just 5-10 years ago we couldn't.
Well, and I think too the reason that it's so important for us to come and talk about these things is we've learned a lot of things the hard way at our institution. We'll pretty much do anything twice. And so if we can share, hey, we did it this way and it was not great, but we learned X, Y, and Z. If I can share that, if we can share our patient experiences and help other institutions to not make those mistakes, or to be able to start at a higher point of learning when you're performing RRT, that's what you want.
Yeah, she had
in life.
She had an article in Pediatrics earlier this year about 5 case studies of success.
Yes, 4 out of 5 survived. They all went on ECMO.
Wow. Wow.
Which, they'll say ECMO is a bridge to something when the lungs are too small, but they grew. All the lungs grew. One of them's in 1st grade now.
That's great.
That's awesome.
I know.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for dropping by. Congratulations on all this amazing work. And we'll be looking out for the workshop tomorrow.
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. I'm sorry. Why am I not having the right...
There are lots of workshops tomorrow that we will talk about.
We'll catch you next year.
Day was
there
yesterday.
are more... Okay, fine.
But the best one was yesterday.
Was yesterday. Is there a specific comment from anybody that struck with you?
Some
So
feedback.
nutrition is my passion, and it was so nice to be in a room of neonatologists because they care about nutrition.
For sure.
You go to other ICUs, maybe not the same story.
That's right.
So, I don't know, it just felt really good to see people excited about dialysis and wanting to know more and wanting to learn how to collaborate. It was great.
Yeah, I think it was a great way to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you both.
guys
Thank
so
you all.
much.